The Las Vegas Raiders, they need some help. And I'm trying to sit up here on today's show and figure out which players we could bring in from NFL free agency to help out this squad. My name is Mitchell Renz. Y'all are watching the Raiders Report, and today I have ranked the Las Vegas Raiders' top 5 biggest needs. Yes, I don't want to jump to conclusions and overreact to a poor performance going up against the Seattle Seahawks in that first preseason game, but here's the one thing that I know. Pete Carroll, John Spytek, they want this team to go out there and compete every single week, and there are multiple areas of concern that I have on both sides of the football, and I'm going to try to figure out with the salary cap space that we have, which players can help us fill some of those needs. So we're going to be looking at the biggest needs. I have them ranked from 5 all the way down to 1, and I'm going to be providing options for each of those needs. One player is going to be my top target, and then I'm going to break down some honorable mentions at each of those positions. Now, it's Monday, and I'm focused on taking down the 49ers report. For those of you that do not know, one of our biggest channels here, not named the Raiders Report, is the 49ers Report, and we're going to be battling them in a sub-battle this entire week. If we want the Raiders to beat them on the field on Saturday, I also want to beat them Monday through Friday as well. So if you haven't, make sure you're subscribing. If we get to 198,000 subs by kickoff, I'm giving away a Raiders jersey. Let's first here go to the Las Vegas Raiders' biggest team needs. Coming in here at number 5, I'm going to go with cornerback. And I'm not saying corner as outside corner. I want to put that and be very, very clear because I do know that the Raiders are confident in Eric Stokes, in Darian Porter, in DeCamerion Richardson. However, the nickel cornerback position is one that I am a little bit concerned about. Darnay Holmes continues to be a coin flip of whether or not he's going to make this squad. I was very impressed by Kai Blue Kelly, and I was very impressed by Greedy Vance from what I've seen from training camp, the mock game, and honestly, in that preseason game. The problem, though, where I'm sitting up here going, all right, Stokes, Porter, DeCamerion Richardson, the Raiders decided to move on from Jacorian Bennett, which if you've seen the way Thomas Booker's been playing, it seems like it's the right move. But to me, if you have an opportunity to go out and improve at any type of position, maybe you should go ahead and do it. So if the Raiders are serious about looking at corner, I'm not going to sit up here and say I want to take Stephon Gilmore and convert him to being a nickel corner. That's not what I'm saying at all. If anything, I would almost be intrigued by taking Stephon Gilmore, maybe using him as like a safety cornerback hybrid like the Raiders have been doing a lot this offseason, moving players around. I know he's up there in age, but over the past 3 seasons, 48 games played, 48 games started. He's played in 180 games in his career. He's got that Tom Brady connection from New England from 2017 to 2019. We know how much that matters to this organization. He did allow a 94.1 passer rating in 2024, which was the worst of his career. So sometimes I wonder when you see a metric like that, is it time to just make a little bit of a change? And the cornerback position, again, for the Raiders that I'm looking for, is just like a hybrid tweener, but we've seen players like a Charles Woodson. We've seen players like a Patrick Peterson, and I do think Stephon Gilmore belongs in that category. Somebody that won Defensive Player of the Year back in 2016 and still playing at a high level. If the Raiders are a little bit concerned about which certain guys are going to be put in that secondary, I think Stephon Gilmore is a good veteran presence that you put in the secondary and then you figure else what you got, because I am concerned about this secondary right now for the silver and black. Though, I did want to just throw out just 3 other names here if the Raiders were serious about going out and adding a potential outside corner. The number 1 name on here is Rasul Douglas. And quite frankly, I think it's Douglas and Stephon Gilmore. I don't really think it's going to be anybody else. But Kendall Fuller's got some experience playing a safety cornerback hybrid. And Troy Hill also has some ties with John Spytek in his time with Tampa Bay last season. Let's go to number 4 here for the offensive guard position. And when I think of offensive guard, right now this interior line for me, it's a head scratcher. I know JPJ is battling with some sort of rib injury right now, but quite frankly, I can't understand. I don't know. I don't know if something's happened with JPJ and this coaching staff, but I don't know how you can look at what the product is for Jackson Powers Johnson and still not give him the nod to be your no doubt starting right guard for the silver and black. The reason why I'm putting OG up here, though, is because of the depth. And if there's one thing that I learned from that Seahawks preseason game, our depth at offensive line is much worse than what I originally realized. Then Caleb Rogers was not good at all. Antonio Mafi was taking first-team reps at right guard at practice yesterday. That's concerning to me. Alex Cappa, even though they're saying that it's not a long-term injury, Kappa's had some injury concerns over the past few seasons, which has led to him being, one of the worst offensive linemen in the NFL. But then Charles Grant, there's some good stuff there. He's an offensive tackle. He's got to learn a little bit more. I'm sorry, Thayer Munford cannot be on an NFL roster, just have how bad he has looked. So to me, an offensive line that I was confident that we were going to have 8 to 9 guys that I feel good about, right now, I feel really only good about a handful of those dudes. And God forbid if somebody gets hurt, we're going to need somebody to step in and play that role. So to me, the guy that I'm going to be looking at, and maybe the Raiders are saying, oh, Alex Cappa was our plan to be a potential starter or to be a potential backup. What we cannot afford right now is to put bad offensive linemen out there on the field and risk Ashton Jeanty not getting running lanes, kind of like what you saw in those last 2 carries in that preseason game. So who am I going to call? I'm going to call Dalton Risner, selected in the 2nd round, 41st overall, back in 2019. The Raiders' assistant general manager, Brian Stark, reminder, he was with Denver for multiple seasons, and he was in charge of a lot of the personnel decisions that they made in the draft. So you already know that he is a fan of Dalton Risner for the amount of years that he spent there in Denver. 87 careers game played, 81 starts. Did only start 10 games last season, was dealing with a little bit of a back injury with the Minnesota Vikings. Sounds like he's healthy to go right now, but why I like this move. He played right guard last season, 537 snaps. The years before that, though, he's played left guard. So if I'm concerned about Alex Cappa, if I'm concerned about Caleb Rogers, well, let's go out and kill 2 birds with 1 stone and sign a Dalton Risner, somebody that can at least give you some left guard and right guard flexibility if need be, because what I don't want to do is I don't want to throw a not ready Charles Grant out on the offensive line. I don't want to throw out a not ready Caleb Rogers. Both of those guys are 3rd round picks. And I know that Charles Grant, again, offensive tackle, it's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about guards, but I also don't want to piss away 2 third-round picks because we're rushing them into the fire. I think Dalton Risner secures those 2 third-rounders that you took to let them develop a little bit longer, and it's not going to cost a lot. He's going to sign for probably the vet minimum, and at this point, with this Raiders interior offensive line, if I'm John Spytek, if I'm Pete Carroll, I'm picking up the phone, I'm getting Brian Stark on the line, and I'm calling Dalton Risner because we need more interior offensive line depth. And I don't even think it's arguable at this point. So what I want to know down below is, what do y'all think the Raiders' biggest need is as it stands right now? Because I'm sitting up here and we're talking a lot about team needs. And when you have team needs, there's a multitude of needs that we have. And again, I'm not trying to jump and go, oh man, we're in full panic mode. But we are right now sitting here on August 11th. And today, for those that don't know, is my grandfather's birthday, RIP to one of the legends. But he was somebody that every day he showed up, he was going to give 110%. And he was going to be somebody that was always going to put his best foot forward. And I think also what he did, he was really good at being able to look himself in the mirror and realizing his weaknesses, and he tried to figure out ways to turn those into strengths. That's what I'm trying to do here for the Raiders, because it's not only about being competitive. I want to be a good frickin' football team, and we are weak in certain areas, and I think that that is noticeable from what we've seen over the past week, and I think it might be shown also at joint practice this week against the 49ers. But please let me know down below, what does the Raiders' biggest team need? I'm going to be looking at your answers down below. I also want to keep on rocking here on today's program because I do want to just, every time I talk about a certain position, just give you some extra, other players that you could look at here. Brandon Scherff has been a name that's been thrown out to me. Shaq Mason and Mark Glowinski. These are more of just bottom of the roster guys. Now, for Scherff, I shouldn't say that. Scherff, when healthy, he can be a really good offensive lineman. He's just had so many damn injuries over the past few seasons that he's kind of fallen off a little bit like Alex Cappa. Due to the connection, due to the price tag, I think Dalton Risner is the best option. Let's go to number 3 here for our Raiders' biggest needs that I want to look at in NFL free agency. It's the edge position. And you can say edge, you can say defensive end, however you want to put it, that's where you can classify it. And to me, there is one player and one player in particular that I am really focusing on, but it's because of what we already have. And the Raiders, if you've watched this show, you probably already know who the hell I'm going to go with, but we know what we have in Max Crosby. Malcolm Koonce, I'm not going to lie to you, he didn't look very good against Seattle. I think he got boxed in quite a few times. Tyree Wilson had himself a good game, was able to get, a few key stops, but because Tyree Wilson is a little bit of a tweener, Donka Hemingway, he actually was taking first-team reps at defensive tackle on practice on Sunday. So maybe the Raiders, because they know they're so thin at defensive tackle, are trying to kick him in a little bit. But they got 2 UDFAs in Ja Joyner, Javari Harvey, who are a little bit unproven. Andre Carter looked okay at times, but really just a pass rusher. Charles Snowden, I don't think he played well at all against Seattle, and I think that he could also end up getting suspended for those 3 games, kind of just like Jordan Addison did. And I don't want to be forced into a situation where we get desperate, because when you get desperate, price tags go up. And if we lose Charles Snowden, this defensive line is going to get more and more desperate. So who's the player that I'm calling right now? I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to give Jadeveon Clowney a call. He's got 15 sacks the past 2 seasons, and he can play defensive end. He can play the Tyree Wilson tweener role, the Tonka Hemingway role, where you're just rotating guys in. If we need a defensive tackle, let him go out there and play DT. If we need a defensive end, let him go out there and play defensive end. I think it also allows Tonka Hemingway to develop. It allows Tyree Wilson to develop a little bit. And there's that coaching connection. Played for Pete Carroll in 2019. That year he had 650 snaps and 87.3 overall PFF grade. That's the second highest of his career. So because of this Raiders defense and because of the front, and with them going with a lot of 4-5 defensive front packages, and the fact that Jadeveon would be able to stand up, and also look at what the Raiders did with K'Lavon Chasen last season. Clowney with Carolina, I do really think with Rob Leonard, with Patrick Graham, with this Raiders defense, Jadeveon Clowney's got to be somebody that we pick up the phone and give a call. Here are some other, though, free agent edges that I'll throw out there. Matt Judon, he's been somebody that has been able to stick around in the league for quite a bit of time, does have a connection with Tom Brady. Za'Darius Smith might be, if fully healthy, the most expensive option here and maybe the best option to add on that interior. And then I'll just throw out the name Shaquil Barrett, obviously because of his John Spytek connections, did end up winning the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. And if we are really just looking for another like Devin White linebacker edge, again, Barrett's definitely more of an edge, but he's getting up there in age. If you're just looking for somebody that you could trust, that's going to be a name I'll throw out there. But if it's up to me, you got to go out and get Jadeveon Clowney. Before I get into the top 2 biggest needs here for the Silver and Black, I got a need for you. I need you all to get in better shape. And I'm not saying that because you're not in good shape. I just want you all to be the healthiest and best versions of yourself. And Panda Sups is going to be here, and they're going to be here to hook you guys up. So if you use code Raiders, and I'm going to put the link for you guys down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. It's pandasups.com. Use code Raiders for 20% off. The one thing that I want to talk about is their brand new First Blood. It is a pre-workout, and I am somebody where I can handle caffeine. I'm not going to lie to you. I can handle caffeine. But if you're somebody who is a little bit sensitive to caffeine, I do recommend taking maybe a half a scoop. That way you don't feel like you got ants crawling on your skin. But I love this pre-workout because right now for me, in the off season, I work out after work. During football season, I work out in the morning. And sometimes it's difficult for me to kind of get the engine going, especially after a watch party, especially when the Raiders are playing at 10 o'clock Eastern time in a preseason game. But this pre-workout really gets me fired up, and it helps me take best advantage of my workout. Now, again, I love what they have to offer, and one of the things that they also are offering is if you get their First Blood Murica pre-workout, there is going to be a surprise inside. I'm not going to tell you what the surprise inside is, because I'll be transparent. I don't even really know what the surprise inside is. All I was told is it was about a $30 value, so it kind of reminds me when I was a kid. You know, you get the box of cereal, open it up, and bingo bango. Maybe there's a Pokemon card or something in there. I don't know if there's going to be a Pokemon card in here, though. $30 value Pokemon card, maybe that's pretty good. I know, I'm getting off track. But when you take advantage of your workout because you're getting the most out of it, I also then want you to be able to take care of those muscles with some of that brand new premium whey protein isolate. It is protein. We're talking about 25 grams of sugar. There are 25 grams of protein, no grams of added sugar, 120, 110 calories. It is protein that I absolutely love. So good, it's going to taste like cheat day every single day. So again, huge shout out to Panda Sups for sponsoring today's show. And again, if you want to take advantage of this deal, 20% off. pandasups.com. That link's down in the comments, and it's down in the description. If anybody also has any questions about like what they should get from Panda, don't ever be afraid to hit me up on social media. I've tried just about everything, and I'd say I got a solid 95% hit rate of stuff where I'm like, you know what? I would absolutely get that again. Let's go to number 2 here on our Raiders team needs, and it's going to be free safety. And some of you might be surprised that I don't have free safety listed as our number 1 overall need for the silver and black, but that's because of how big of a need this one is down here, and it kind of drives me nuts that it's a need. We'll get to it here in a second, but I know the Raiders just went out and they signed Terrell Edmunds over the weekend, and I'm excited to see what Edmunds can bring to the table because I'll tell you this, Jamal Adams must have heard me because Jamal Adams has been giving me a big old middle finger in all the best ways possible because he's looked like a phenomenal linebacker for this team, but Jamal's not playing safety. The Raiders lost Lonnie Johnson Jr. for a few weeks, and it sounds like he's going to be back in weeks 4 or 5. Jeremy Chin, Isaiah Paul-Lamau, there's still some learning curves there, no doubt about it. Thomas Harper only played 1 snap in that Seahawks game. Trey Taylor did have an interception yesterday, but he was not good in that Seahawks game. Chris Smith has been filling in for Lonnie Johnson Jr., but overall, I am somebody that is very concerned about our Raiders defensive line. And when you look at Pete Carroll's defenses, they like to blitz a lot. And I'm worried that with a lot of blitzing and a not great defensive line, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get home as often as what we need to. And if we're unable to get home, well, that means we're going to put extra stress on our safeties, extra stress on our defensive backs. And because of that extra stress, that is a little bit concerning to me. But to me, I think that there's one name. And y'all already know which name I'm going to go with here, but Justin Simmons, to me, is the number 1 free safety that the Raiders got to pick up the phone and they got to call. And again, he's got the Brian Stark connection. And I know they went out and they got Terrell Edmunds. They've been looking for some cheap options, and maybe that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to find cheaper options to compete right now, because if you go out and get Simmons, that's your guy, right? There's no more competing. Like, that's going to be your starting free safety. But to me, he's been so reliable. His first defensive back coach, Joe Woods, 2015-2016. The Brian Stark connection from Denver from 2012 to 2024. He's had at least 2 interceptions every year of his career, and he's got a lot of games under his belt. Because I am worried about the defensive line, and if y'all are worried about the Raiders' defensive line, adding more help into that secondary could really, really help out this defense. So Justin Simmons is a name to keep in mind. Let's go to another name here, just a few others. Jordan Whitehead, John Johnson. If I could say these are probably obviously like 2 of the more realistic options. Some of y'all might go, well, Mitch, what about Quandre Diggs? You talked about him a bunch. He actually signed with the Tennessee Titans last week, so just keep that in mind. And I'm going to put Stephon Gilmore on here again because I think when you have corners that have shown you that they are dominant corners for their career, when they lose a step, but they still have it up here, can you convert him to a safety? I would personally give it a shot. That allows your younger corners then to continue to play on the outside. Coming up next here, though, the Raiders' biggest team need. And I hate the fact that I'm even talking about this biggest team need because I thought it was going to be one of our strengths coming into the season. Before I get into that, though, if you do not know, I'm going to be out in Tucson, Arizona, August 22nd. And if you want to link up, I'm going to be here. Desert Shark Tucson. It is owned and operated by Fabian Moreno, a.k.a. the Night Devil. You've probably have heard him banging on some shows here. But he owns this awesome poke bento restaurant. And I told him, hey, man, if you're MVP back-to-back months on the Raiders Report, I'm going to pull up and let's go out there and let's have a good time. So for anybody that does not know, Tucson, Arizona, from noon to 3 o'clock on August 22nd, it's a Friday. It's the day right before the Raiders' final preseason game up against the Arizona Cardinals. So if you want to pull up, I hope that you do. And the reason why that I say that is because I'm going to be out there all day. And I know that the times that I said I'm going to be out there from 12 to 3 o'clock. But also, you got to consider the fact that the more people that we get there, the better and better that it is going to be. So if you want to look up the address, look up Desert Shark Tucson. I promise you, you'll be able to find it. It's going to be a great, great event. The more Raider fans that we get there, the more fun that we're going to be able to have. I hope to see you out there. Also, it's on my Instagram. It's on their Instagram as well. So if you look me up at Mitchell Renz 365, you'll see the post. You'll see all the information. There's also going to be tons of giveaways. So good luck to everyone that ends up showing up. It's going to be a party. Let's go to number 1 here. To me, the biggest need and why I put this video the way that I did of the Raiders need help. The Raiders need help on the defensive line. The Raiders need help right now at DT. And this is a team that predicates itself on winning in the trenches. And I think the way that the Raiders built this defense, there's, the linebackers, the safeties, the corners, there's a lot of length, there's a lot of young players, and I think that they're doing that, and they built that defense that way because they were so confident that with this defensive line, with Christian Wilkins, they were going to be able to be disruptive. And when you're disruptive, when you're able to get after the quarterback bringing 4, it allows you to kind of have the defense that the Raiders have. Unfortunately, right now, though, defensive tackle to me is this team's biggest weakness. Jonah Lalu did not play well. Keandre Coburn didn't get a lot of reps either. Thomas Booker, who was a UDFA from SMU, he's been taking first-team reps. Now, that's because Adam Butler's missed the last few practices with a personal matter, but Leki Fotu, he's in a walking boot. Thomas Booker was getting some reps with the first team, and right now, Adam Butler and Thomas Booker are your top 2 defensive tackles, and I don't think it's all that close. And because I say that, there's just a lot of concern with a lot of these other players because I think John Lalu is a good player, but he to me is like a DT4, DT5. Zach Carter, same thing. Leki Fotu, same thing. And then Coburn, Booker, Mahe, I don't even know if these guys are good enough to make some practice squads on some other NFL teams. So to me, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call Quinton Jefferson. And this isn't a great fix. To me, I would call Quinton Jefferson somebody that the Raiders already brought in for a tryout 2 weeks ago. He played 5 seasons with Pete Carroll. He's got a great relationship with Max Crosby from their time together in 2021. Yes, he's 32 years old, but if you need an extra guy because you have so many young players at defensive tackle, if you're concerned that a guy like Fotu, and they don't play the exact same defensive tackle role, Quinton Jefferson isn't a nose. He's probably more of a 3-tech. You want to put him out on the outside between the offensive guard and offensive tackle. But Quinton Jefferson is somebody that this team knows, and because we are at August 11th, that's just a guy that I'd pick up the phone and give a call to. So I also wanted to be able to break down, though, some other honorable mentions at the defensive tackle position. I know it says free safety. It's supposed to be DT. Jadeveon Clowney, though, is the number 1 name. And again, I'm just going to keep on putting him up here on this list because he's the guy that I would go out and get. If you need another big guy, Linval Joseph will be a name I'll throw out there. And then also William Golston, because William Golston has played multiple years underneath John Spytek in Tampa Bay. He is 36 years old. He's up there in age, but defensive tackle's been a position that you could play at a high level when you can play at a high level late in years, and I think Calais Campbell's a good version of that. So before I get out of here, here's a question for you. If you could sign one NFL free agent right now, who would it be? I know I went through team needs. I know I threw out a lot of names at you, but y'all are about to get hit with a YouTube ad break. While that ad is playing, which is scrolling down again, give me your answer. For me, I have them ranked, my top 3 free agents that I would sign right now. First name, Jadeveon Clowney, because I think he can play edge and he can play defensive tackle. And to me, I'm able to take away 2 needs with 1 player, and I'm willing to pay him to do it. Justin Simmons, go out there and get a free safety. And then I'll throw in Stephon Gilmore if you want to use him as a DB converted safety. The Raiders need some help, and these 3 guys could absolutely help out this team.